I'm extremely excited to be here. How the heck's everybody doing? Pretty awesome, pretty awesome. Live and in person, real people doing real things. Thought we would never see the day. It's pretty fantastic. And we all took a bit of a journey to get here, but at the end of the day, I'm really happy we are. So I think we've got a little bit more here to go. But I remember it was a year ago that I was thinking about how to build my business. And I'm just like every single one of you here today, thinking about how to expand my network, build on some things, do some new things. And I wanted to get back out, do some more syndications, raise some more capital for my deals, do all the fun things that I like doing. And getting in person is one of them, and meeting people face to face. And sure enough, I'm sitting at home and I'm on my Facebook like, everybody does, scrolling through the ads, and boom, this multifamily conference pops up. May 2022 in person, and I'm just like, what the heck's going on here? Who's holding a live event or planning a live event right in the middle of all this crazy stuff that we have going on? Sure enough, it's I give Seth a call, and I'm just like, hey, what's going on with this event in May 2022? He's like, yeah, we're gonna do an in-person event. I'm like, we're in the middle of COVID, like there's nothing going on like this. He's like, I know, it's gonna be awesome. He's like, it's all gonna be fine, no problem. I'm like, okay, cool. Well, I see you got some spaces available, and you got some stuff, like you got some speaker spots, you got some things, I wanna be involved, how do I get involved? He's like, yeah, we're doing speaker, we got an after party, and we got some sponsorships, and I'm just like, I'm in. And he's just like, in for what? I was like, all of it, I'll just take all of it. I was like, I want to speak, I want to sponsor, I want to throw the after party, I want to build my business, I want to be here meeting people, and I definitely want to be at the first multifamily conference event live and in person, just like every single one of you, and so here we are, right? So speaking of which, it always goes underappreciated how much time and energy it takes to put on something crazy like this, and all the people that are listening in here, it was so easy for us just to show up for a couple of days and do a couple of things, but the tech people, Seth, his team, the sales, Katie, everybody in the back, people at the arena, this literally has been in the works for a year and a half, and it was all just to put us in this place to network and build our business. So I just want to take this moment to give them a round of applause. So everybody, please, for doing that. So, of course, there's always challenges, and there's always things that make us wonder whether things are worth it. For instance, we had some challenges sort of planning this entire event. Some of us had to road trip all the way from Vancouver Island to get here, which we did. That's real. Some of us took a flight. They got here, had to take some time off work. And even my incredible wife risked her life by getting on a plane all by herself last night with 4 of our kids, and flew here literally on her own, and she made it. So I'm very thankful for that. But we were always facing challenges as to whether or not we could actually pull it off or we don't. And at the end of the day, we either do or we don't, right? And we did it. So here we are. So doing business this past few years has been pretty crazy. Everybody knows what I'm talking about. Virtual meetings out the yin-yang, only having to dress from the waist up all the time. Accidentally not muting your mic when you go to the bathroom on a Teams meeting. You know what I'm talking about. That was a loud laugh. That's her for sure. But this is how I usually plan and prep for my webinars, all of my onlines. Those are my actual kids duct taped to the wall, because when I'm working from home, that's exactly what I have to do. And considering this is our first live event, I wanted to be creative and think a little bit outside the box. And since I don't have any duct tape left, and since my amazing wife and my kids took all the effort to make it out here and support me, I wanted to give them an opportunity to come out and share with you my reason for doing every single thing that I do. So, family, please, come on. So this is my oldest son, Carter, Bouchard. These are my twin girls, Ella and Madden. This is my youngest son, Charlie. And this is my absolutely amazing wife, Sherry, who, if everybody in here is building their business, everyone knows that there's sacrifices that we're giving up, and there's always somebody on the other side doing all the hard work. And this is for you, honey. Thank you so much for being here. All right, now get the heck off. See you later. Thank you very much, guys. Bye-bye. We'll see you later, buddy. Give me this. Yes. That's pretty awesome. What's up? What's up? I didn't plan that, I promise. So yeah, they'll be at the after party for sure. Yeah, he planned the whole thing. So that was obviously to show appreciation for my family, give you guys a little bit about who I am. It'd be one thing just to put a picture of my family on the screen and tell you how important it is to me. But at the end of the day, that is actually what matters. This is literally why I do it, and I'm not just talking about it. They're here, they support me. We put in the effort to make sure that we were here to do this as a family, because every single thing that I'm doing is for them, and it's what matters. And I want you guys to think about that, because at the end of the day, if you're not here knowing what matters, then all of this is for nothing anyway. It's just the stuff that'll go in one ear and out the other, right? And it doesn't matter what your why is, as they talk about, and Marcin and Dave, they obviously talked about it as well. It's a real thing. If you don't know what matters, then you really don't know why you're doing any of it, and you're not gonna be willing to take the sacrifices and do the hard work that comes with all of the stuff that we're planning to do. So at the end of the day, if you can really just think about that and put that in your mind and figure out what that is and put it front and center, the rest is just gonna fall into place. I promise, no matter what you do. And I've done some crazy stuff, and it's only because I understand what matters and I'm willing to do everything for it. So, where are we here? So, I'm here to talk about creative real estate strategies. And I wanted to make sure that I was adding value to you guys, and it's a difficult thing to do in a small amount of time that we have, but my way of doing that is going to be showcasing some of the deals that I have not only completed, but I'm actively involved in currently right now. And I'm gonna talk about some of the strategies that I have used to acquire these pieces of property that I would have otherwise had no business acquiring or have been able to acquire. And in this market particularly, things are getting a lot tougher. Like, they just are. Like, the prices are outrageous, the cap rates are shrunk, everyone's been talking about it all day, and it's a real thing. It's hard. Everybody's like, how do you make money? And, you know, construction costs are so high, and how do you pay investors, and how do you do syndications, and all of that's real. And at the end of the day, you just gotta get creative, and that's my jam. I think outside the box. When somebody brings me a deal, I find a way to do it my way, not the way that everybody says it's supposed to be done. And that's how you gotta look at everything. And we were just talking about a syndication with a guy, and he's like, you know, how do I put these deals and all this? And I was like, 90% of the deals you look at, 99%, they're just not gonna make sense. But if you're not willing to look for the 1%, then you're never gonna do it. It's just not gonna make sense most of the time. Get creative and figure it out. So I hope you guys find some value in that. So let's get started on that. So creative real estate strategies is a very loose term. You can go and Google creative real estate strategies, but at the end of the day, you're gonna find things like, you know, fix and flip and rent to own and the whole extended closing and flip to yourself and fix this and fix that. And, you know, there's a whole bunch of creative things you can do, but Google doesn't always have all the answers, right? You gotta like think about it yourself and kind of figure it out. And you gotta just know when to put these things into place, know how to put them into place. It just doesn't teach you how, like what the actual thing is that you do. And so I'm hoping that we can express that in some of these deals. In order to do that though, in order to do any of what I'm about to show you on my deals or anything that I've done, you've gotta be open-minded. Number one, you've gotta be, everybody knows what they know, right? You heard that, right? You just know, you know everything you know. But the one thing you don't know are the things that you don't even know yet. So if you're not willing to look outside and look in your peripheral, that's called your blind spots. So think about that. All of the stuff that you haven't done is a blind spot for you. And if you're not willing to like take a step back and like look at that and be like, whoa, there's other things that people know that I don't know, then you're not gonna succeed. You gotta step outside of your comfort zone. Everybody has a box, right? We all have a box. Everybody has a box, right? Yes? Yes, you live in a box. Your life is in a box. Doesn't matter how big it is. Some people's boxes are bigger than others. Only person who doesn't have one is like Elon Musk, that, so unless you're at his level, you have a box. And so you have to be willing to step outside of that. And you have to make sure that you have the capacity to pull it all off. So that's very important too, because it's one thing to go out and get a deal and to lock it up and to be creative and to raise millions of dollars of capital from people to go and do a deal. But if you don't have the capacity to pull it all off, you're setting yourself up for a disaster. And you gotta make sure, that's the blind spot thing. You gotta make sure that you understand where you need to fill those gaps in, who you need to bring on board, what team members have the experience that you don't have. If you haven't done a syndication, partner with somebody who has. If you don't know how to do construction, partner with a contractor. If you don't have the net worth to go get a loan, go get a partner who has a big net worth and will back your loan. All of these things help you build the capacity to pull off the deals that you wanna do. And it's all possible, because I do it every day. So, if you're not willing to do those things, now's the time to go for a pee break, because the rest of the presentation won't apply to you. And if you are, I need you to repeat after me. I will be open-minded to finding solutions. I will step outside of my comfort zone. There's the robot mentality. I have the capacity to pull it all off. Do you know why speakers get you to repeat stuff and say it out loud, specifically in this situation? This is to get you outside of your comfort zone, right? And if you yell out stuff all the time and you're one of those people, well, you're already outside of your comfort zone. But most people just aren't willing to get outside the comfort zone and think about it. So it's a pretty simple sort of mentality, but it's very, very true. But at the end of the day, those are the three things I want you to focus on throughout this entire presentation, and for the rest of your lives for that matter, if you want to be creative and if you want to succeed in this industry, because it is a very, very tough industry. I promise you that. So the first case study is a 32-unit building in Nanaimo, British Columbia. So this deal was a fix and flip strategy that we were looking to acquire. This deal was our first deal on Vancouver Island, but it was also represented the very first deal that I was able to do with 100% of investor capital. I'd done lots of deals before, but a lot of them took my own capital. And why that was important is because partnering with investors is critical, and you're always gonna run out of your own money. And at the end of the day, when you invest zero of your own money, it's considered an infinite return, so that's a bonus. But at the end of the day, as an operator, it's your sweat equity that you're putting into the deal. That's why money will find you, is because you're putting sweat equity into the deal. But in this particular case, I was just kind of getting in the groove with raising capital and finding value and proving myself in the industry as an expert in what I knew or what I was doing. And so I had to find the value here. Like, I kind of knew there was value in this building. It was under rented and it was in a good market, or so I thought. And but it's like that chicken and egg situation where you're trying to find money, and the money's like, okay, well, bring me a deal. And you're like, well, I don't have a deal. I need money. They're like, well, go find it and I'll give you money. And you're like, well, how do I get it and you don't have any money? So every syndication I've done, you guys, and I've done quite a bit of them, they have all sucked. like I'm not joking. They frickin' suck. And they suck because they're a grind. They're a grind to it's like finding the deal is a grind. And making sure that you know what you're talking about and that you can actually pull it off. And then try and convince people to give you their money. Like, when you're first starting out and you're trying to get these things going, like it's just something you gotta think about. And it's something you can't overcome, but you gotta know your blind spots. You gotta know where your value is. And so I had to start getting creative. And so in this particular deal, it was in a market where rents were approximately $900. It was Nanaimo, so this is 3-4 years ago, before anybody even cared about Nanaimo. My broker told me I was an idiot for going to Nanaimo. It was out of my market. I didn't live by it, but I knew the rents were there, and I knew there was opportunity, because when people aren't looking at the areas, that's where you find opportunities, and that's the risk part of it, right? And I knew the area because we had staff and we had people there. But in this particular case, I was trying to get the investor capital, and so I had to do exactly what I said, which was find the value. And I knew this had value, but I couldn't find the money until I could prove that there was value. So I started thinking outside the box. And I went to the bank on this. Again, I talked to my broker, and he's like, Nanaimo's a soft market. We're gonna give you 60% loan to value at the most, and we're gonna need a net worth of, $3 million, and we want you to show us $2 million in cash in the bank. And by the way, that building sucks. And so I was like, but the rents are at 600. He's like, the rents are at 600. I'm like, yeah, but they could be at 9, like tomorrow. He's like, yeah, okay, go get them. He's like, once you get it at 9, come back and talk to me, and we'll do some business. I'm like, ugh. Okay, fine. So what I did with this building was I got it under contract for $3.5 million, which was high at the time because it wasn't selling. But there was a vendor in here who literally almost lived in the building. He lived on the mainland, and he was operating this on his own. He was doing everything. He was renovating units. Had pest infestations. It was a poverty building. He was working on it himself, so he was motivated. So I gave him his purchase price under a few conditions. I said, look, I'll give you $3.5 million for your building, but I want 1 year to close on it. That would allow me to do my upgrades and get my stuff done. I want 3 months of due diligence. I will give you $250,000 non-refundable after the 3 months subject removal, and I'll give you another $250,000 at the 6-month point. The kicker is, I want to be able to negotiate with the tenants on behalf of the owner. I want owner authorization during the 3-month due diligence period. And this guy was he sent this to his lawyer, and his lawyer spit it back, and he's like, no. And that's what every owner will likely tell you, or so you think. Because why would they want you in there talking to their tenants and disrupting the program and going in there and pissing people off and making disturbances when you haven't even done the deal? But this guy was motivated, and I was willing to give him more than his building was worth. And I was also flashing that $250,000 around. Be like, dude, yeah, but it's gonna be non-refundable. If I don't close, you're gonna keep all my money. I didn't have that money, by the way. And I never usually do when I'm doing these deals because I don't need it until I have a deal. Until you have a deal, you can't find the money, remember? So I got it under contract. This guy accepts the offer. He basically gives me the keys to the building. So that allowed me to start negotiating with the tenants right away. So what I did is I created a tenant upgrade program. This was my very first tenant upgrade program, okay? I literally created a sheet that said, if you increase your rent from $600 to $900 a month, so it's a $300 a month increase, I will, in exchange, clean up this building, fix the management, make it healthier and safe to be here, and I will do renovations in way of doors and windows, because it was 100% tenant pay utilities, and in this old building, they were spending way more in heat, and they were paying for it. And they also had coin laundry. So I said I would install in-suite laundry into their suite if they agreed to do this. And I did the calculation for them, and I showed them, hey, look, you're probably gonna save about $150 a month with these upgrades that I'm gonna do, and the other $150 is just because you live in a piece of crap building, and I'm gonna make it better, and you're gonna be in a better place overall. I promise, just sign here. Which I am very authentic, by the way. I do care, and the whole point of getting these deals done is creating a win-win with the tenants and the landlords, and that is your best ability to get a deal done. And I am very authentic about the stuff that I talk about, and I'm very authentic with my tenants, and if they don't wanna do the deal, they don't have to. I just don't do the deal. But when you find a distressed building, I guarantee you 90% of the people don't wanna be living there. They have to live there because there's nowhere else to go and they can't really afford more. So I spent 2 weeks in November. I lived in a hotel for 2 weeks, and I brought these packages over and I negotiated with the tenants face to face. I knocked on every single door and I showed them this package. And what I knew is that for every $300 a month in increased rent, That was $3,600 per unit annually, which is a $2,340 net operating increase, net operating income increase per unit, which at the end of the day was equivalent to a $39,000 per unit increase just from a $300 per unit. So if you do the math on that, that's a $1.25 million potential increase in value in that building if you got all 32 units. Now, of course, it's not that easy to get that. I'll put that back up for you guys. But it's not easy to get that. But at the end of the day, I spent 2 weeks negotiating with the tenants, and I got 24 out of 32 tenants to sign brand new lease agreements for $900 a month rent in contract, which I was legally allowed to do in exchange for doing the renos. And my deal with them was the renovations, but it was also to keep their rent at the same amount for the following 12 months. They didn't even have to pay the increase for 12 months. 24 units is equivalent to $936,000. I had it on paper, guys, in due diligence period, before I even removed subjects. You think it was hard for me to find money then? Not even a little bit. Then I could go to the investors and be like, I got a deal, and I already made money. Who wants to invest? All I had to do was raise money for the deposits and raise money for the renovations that it took for us to do the renos that I promised, which we did. And then we were able to do that deal within a year. The investors made a killing. I was able to put a creative strategy together at the beginning, which didn't cost me anything other than sweat equity at the beginning. And I was able to provide an already increased value of that building, which is exactly what the investors are looking for, usually. I mean, that's a pretty damn good thing to do for them. But at the end of the day, it worked. And so we revitalized that building, and we were able to pull it off. And the strategy summary for this is that I negotiated the extended closing that allowed me to do the work. So remember the bank that wouldn't give me the money or said the building was crappy and I had to put like $2 million down? I didn't need them, so I didn't call the bank again. The investors were able to come on board for a lower amount of investment, and the risk was mitigated because I had already increased the value on paper. It was already done. We just had to do the work. So we created additional value before closing, and of course, I used other people's money, which was the investors, partnered with my sweat equity, and I did 100% of that deal with investor capital. And that was the very first deal that I was able to pull off with 100% of other people's money. That was 4 years ago. 2018 was when we removed subjects on that building, and then we did the renovations for a year, okay? And then the tenant upgrade program that was the first time I had implemented that as well. But wait, there's a little bit more. There's a bonus strategy here. So what I didn't tell you is that while we were doing the renovations, I actually gutted and renovated 5 of the units because I knew that I could get more than $900 a month rent, but again, I needed to prove it. So I renovated 5 units strategically while I was doing all the other stuff, and I was able to rent them for $1,250 a month in the same market, the same year, where people told me it wasn't even possible to get $900. So that's $350 a month of additional revenue from every unit that I knew I could achieve. And $350 a month times 32 units, again, increased the annual operating income of the building by $89,000, which told me that there was another $1.5 million in equity sitting in the deal I already owned. And the plan was to flip it. And so here I am working to sell the building and flip it while I'm trying to find another apartment building to go buy and renovate units. And I'm sitting on the damn deal right away. So what I did was I went and flipped it to myself with a whole nother set of investors. And I put together another package and said, hey guys, I've got 32 units here. All of them are at $900 and 5 of them are at $1,250. Let's do the rest at $1,250. We already have the building. We paid out the original investors and we brought on new investors and we did that building again. And so at the end of the day, when the opportunity presents itself, this is the building right now, today. We still own that building. And it's worth $8 million today. That's four years after we acquired it. And we finished our upgrades in 100% of the building. And it's one thing to say it's $8 million, but I actually can tell you that it's worth $8 million because we got an offer on it on the way here while I was driving here from Vancouver Island, which we accepted. So it's now under contract, and we're looking to sell this building, exit out, take our capital, and roll it over into our developments. Pretty cool deal. Does that make sense to you guys? I can't do questions right now, but we can answer them after. So this is another deal that we did. 126 unit building in Duncan, British Columbia. This is another renovate, refinance, and flip opportunity. This is an extremely challenging deal. This was extremely challenging. As you can see by the picture, wasn't in the best state. Building was in bad shape. It was difficult to establish the actual value of it. And when I came across this building, it had a major fire 2 years prior that demolished 25% of the interior, unlivable, was currently in the middle of an insurance claim. It had numerous pest infestations, rats, cockroaches, bed bugs. It was like for real. You wouldn't walk into this building without a mask on, and it had nothing to do with COVID. It was a respiratory mask to save your life because there was actual risk. You know what I mean? Property managers were in place. They were not doing their job. They were actually running their own little drug cartel, stealing money from the owner because he was at a distance. No joke. It was real. All this stuff is very, very true. 45% vacancy rate in this building. Average rents were $567 a month. Duncan is on Vancouver Island, by the way. It's right in between Nanaimo and Victoria, so we were already sort of like in the know. But at the end of the day, the owner of that building, he was asking $12 million for his building. Now I get it, it's a nice building and everything, but on paper, it was only worth $4.5 million. I'm like, there's a bit of a gap here. But we're gonna find a solution, right? We're gonna get creative and think outside the box because nobody else would touch this thing, nobody. This was for sale for years. Nobody would touch it. But I saw the value and I understood what potential there was in here. I just had to come up with a plan to pull it off. I also knew that we could probably make the building value between $18 to $20 million on paper. Like that's where we thought we could get this thing after we were renovated. So I knew there was value. But the building was uninsurable because it was in an insurance claim for the existing fire damage. It was unfinanceable. So you remember that lender that wouldn't lend to me on Vic Road or on the Nanaimo deal? Well, what do you think he said about this one? The owner wanted more than it was worth, and raising capital would be challenging as well because it was a remote market. People didn't really believe me that I knew what I was doing in Duncan because I was still living on the mainland. So it was a remote deal for me. We didn't quite know the market. So again, how do I go and raise all the money to buy the deal and all the money to do the renovations, which would have totaled like $16 million if I got a decent price, all on a whim that I know what I'm talking about in Duncan with a building that is ready to fall over. So in this particular case, I talked to the owner, and he really wanted a property manager in place because things were falling apart quickly. And I said, look, I can't do this deal with you. I can't even make you an offer because I have no idea what I'm getting into here. There's so much to unpack here from a construction standpoint and the insurance and the cost of construction and the market rents and the existing tenants. There was so much to do. But I said, why don't we do this? I said, why don't I property manage your building for you? And he's like, what are you talking about? I was like, you said your property managers are crap and they're on their way out. I said, I'm kind of bored right now. This was March 2020, if you remember that time. I was in the middle of selling my welding company. I was on the tail end actually, and all of my other deals are wrapping up, and I needed something to do. I needed a big project. So I said, I'll come and property manage your building for you because I'm gonna have to spend 3 months of due diligence no matter what. Even as a buyer, I would have 3 months of intense due diligence to do on this deal. And all of the information I need is sitting inside the building. So I was like, I will property manage your building for an extremely low rate. That will give me the chance to do all of my due diligence. And at the end of the day, if I don't like what I see, I'll pass all of my information over to you. I'll help you implement property management to take my spot. I'll walk away, no harm done, and you have more information than you began with. And if I like what I see and I can do my due diligence, I'll make you an offer. So he's like, good idea. Great idea, Guy. Way to think outside the box. So he's like, when can you start? I was like, next week. I got up and told my wife, I'm going to Duncan. She's like, what are you talking about? I was like, well, it's just building and it's gonna change our lives and I'm gonna take a risk. We're gonna do some stuff. She's like, okay, see ya. She was sick of me being locked up for a couple months in the house anyway, so she's like, wicked. So I developed a a tenant upgrade program for this building as well. This deal required the cooperation of the existing tenants. Not only did I have to boot out the old property manager and get them out the door, but I had to negotiate strategically with the tenants to let them know that I was there to help them and that I was not there to kick them out, but that I had a plan that I wanted to implement to renovate this building that required 100% of their cooperation. And that if they wanted to work with me, I would work on buying the building. And if they didn't want to work with me, I would just get up and leave. I had no interest in doing it if I didn't have their cooperation. So I rejigged the tenant upgrade package. I made a more advanced one. And I created a tenant upgrade document that basically gave them a selection of renovations for their own units. And what I had on there was I had, for every $100 of rent per month that you are willing to pay more, I will give you $10,000 of upgrades to your unit. So $100 was 10 grand, $200 more was 20 grand, $300 more was 30 grand. And if you wanted the full meal deal, it was $1,100 a month flat rent. And we would do a total gut and spend like 55 grand renovating the building. I don't want to get too much into the math, but I knew that for every $100 a month that I was able to increase their rent, it equaled $23,000 of increased value to the building. So you think I cared about spending 10 grand to help them renovate their units and give them a better place to live? Absolutely not. So what did I do? I held a town hall meeting. And I got all the tenants invited over and I said, hey guys, I want to talk to all of you at the same time. And I literally knocked on every one of their doors, passed out notices, and at that time, the COVID restrictions were like, whatever it was, 25 or 50 per room. So I had to do 2 town hall meetings, like consecutively. But you know what I did was I did this. I did a presentation. I literally created a PowerPoint slide, and I showed them my entire plan. I was like, hey guys, here's what I want to do. Because they're all like, oh, he's trying to screw us, and oh, he's gonna kick us out of the building, and oh, don't listen to this guy, he's telling you lies, and all those things, right? I'm the big bad evil landlord that's gonna come and vacate everybody. I was like, guys, I promise you 100% that none of you are going anywhere if you don't want to. And we will also make this a better place. And I showed them my plan. I showed them my tenant upgrade form. I showed them the numbers of the value of the building that I could increase if they injected a certain amount of money back into the revenue. And if a certain percentage of them, which was 75 at the time, agreed to get to at least $900 a month average, that I was gonna be able to not only do the renovations I promised to their units, but also do substantial renovations to the building itself. And I laid it all out for them, just like this. It was like an hour presentation. And by the end of it, they knew I wasn't out to harm them. I was honest and transparent with them throughout the entire process. And they knew they had a decision. There was no forcing nothing. It's just like, guys, if you don't want to do this, no problem. Just tell me, we're done. I won't buy the building, it's all good. After 2 weeks, I was able to get 50% of the tenants in that building to agree to upgrade plans. Within 2 weeks, right away. Same as the other one. I had people coming into the office, thank you so much. Like, this place is so horrible. I don't like living here. I'm embarrassed to have my family come here. I don't want to live in these conditions. This isn't what I want. I want to improve the place that I live. I'm happy to give back. Thank you for being honest. Overwhelming love and support. And I created a bond with those tenants. Yeah, sure, there's a financial business model attached to this thing, but I was open and honest with them that that's obviously what I'm going to be doing. Because without it, I'm not gonna dump a bunch of money into a building. No owner's gonna do that. And if they left that place because of another fire, they were gonna have to go live in some other piece of crap building, probably for much more than I was gonna be charging them, or they were gonna be paying us. So it was a pretty fantastic outcome while I was doing that. What that enabled me to do was it armed me with the information to what? Go back and talk to the vendor. Be like, okay. And what I did also while I was there, strategically, I was doing a detailed assessment on the construction cost to renovate that building. And what I determined during the time was that it was an $8.5 million restoration project to get to the building to my standards and to pull off everything. So I went back to the owner and I was like, look, I'll give you $8 million. It's not 4.5 and it's not 12. I'll pay you $8 million. Your building ain't worth $8 million, I promise you. Nobody else is gonna pay this, but I will. And what I need from you is I need a 2-year closing to let me give me the time to complete the work, do all the upgrades, complete the renovation, fill it back up, restabilize the building, and wrap it all back up. And the kicker is I want you to pay for the renovations. So that was, deal's not done yet, But this is the way you should be thinking. Because I was like, look, dude, I'm not gonna put this money into the building right now. Like I'm not gonna pay you 12 and then put 8.5 in just to break even. But if you give me the 8 and you fund the renovations, I'll pay you interest on that money. And if I screw up in any way, shape, or form, you want all your money went into your building anyways. Like it's a benefit to you. I'm improving the building every single day that this thing goes by. So it was a win-win-win. And at the end of the day, we were able to do this deal initially with no financing. So again, no bank. Vendor was the bank. We were able to do it with no equity partners, which was obviously a big win for us, as a company. We were able to keep more of the deal. Of course, it came with more risk, but hey, that's what we were there for. And essentially, we were able to do it with little to no cash in the deal, other than the sweat equity to get into it. So that had many, many risks. And I also was willing to do that deal because it was an opportunity to change my life. I literally moved my family and my business, uprooted everything. I sold my welding company, that completed. I finished all of my Lower Mainland buildings, and I went home after 2 months, and I was like, honey, we're moving to Duncan. Just so you know, she has family in Duncan. She knew damn well what Duncan was. And she's like, honey, I'm leaving you. And I was like, you know what? I think we got to find a happy medium here because this is a 2-year project. I'm not willing to be away from you guys and travel every single week and catch a ferry and live away from you. This is a place that has an opportunity. It was a place I wanted to move to. It was an up and coming place for development. We wanted to transition into development. It had a lot of wins. I want a place for my family to be able to grow and be in a place. So it checked all the boxes, and it had the potential to give my company the revenue and the overhead to continue working because the size of the construction project enabled us to be a general contractor that was able to fulfill our ability to continue on as a company. And there are always risks in the deals, but at the end of the day, we took them. And the strategy on this one was the extended closing, complete the renovations prior to closing in order to complete the renovations. Vendor financing was 100% owner funded. And we had a strategic tenant upgrade program that allowed us to work with the tenants and give them the option to decide whether or not they wanted to be involved in the business plan or not. And like I said, I don't I don't harm, I don't coerce, I don't harass, I don't pressure, I don't do any of that crap. It is a very, very open, transparent relationship. If you want this, this is what I require. Make your decision. That's it. We've done that strategically on multiple buildings, and it's been very successful. And in a rent-controlled market, you have to do this now, because you can't. You can't do anything else. Now, all of this comes with risk. And this was a risky freaking deal, and I'd love to tell you that we were actually able to complete this deal. But in reality, that's not how it worked out right now. We got in a dispute with the owner, and actually he's in the middle of trying to cancel this contract and cancel our agreement after we put all the work and all the time and energy into it. And as a company, I'm gonna tell you, that's something you don't see coming. And it almost crushed us because we invested everything into this. But guess what? That's life. Tough shit. And we were able to power through that. And we were able to continue on focusing on our business. And that's exactly what my team and I did, is we turned to what's important and we turned to our core values. And we said, are we gonna let this get us down and let it defeat us? Or are we gonna focus inward and look at the next opportunity? And at the end of the day, this opportunity got us to Duncan. And we've been working strategically on development opportunities ever since we got there. It's not over yet, so don't get me wrong. We're in negotiations, and I'm hopeful that there's gonna be an outcome. But at the end of the day, I wanted to tell you that because it's real. And because you're going to get those things to hit you in the face. Someone's gonna pull the rug out from under you. And that's a risk that we took by moving there. And we knew the risks, okay? We knew the risks. And we were prepared for them. And we survived. And we are thriving in our company. We're here today because we're thriving and we have opportunities. And we are also focusing on our next business plan, which is the next chapter of our business, which is development. And that's the next deal that I want to share with you. So the third case study is a 14-acre development site in Nanaimo. This property has a really awesome story attached to it. We stepped foot on this property. My man Brandon up there, a lot of you know Brandon Lawson. He's my VP of acquisitions. We have a very, very good relationship. And we started working together a few years ago. And he brought me to this because I was talking to him about wanting to be like a developer. We wanted to start developing, and he brought me to this property. 14 acres, South Nanaimo, had been for sale forever. Nobody was touching it. And we were standing on it. But at that time, I was still on the mainland. And I was still on my welding company, and I still had all the things going. And we looked at it, and he's like, hey, the property is, it's in the OCP for high density. It's crazy, tons of upside. The vendor is flexible. He's willing to do anything. And so I went and looked at it with him, and we walked that property, and we looked at this opportunity, and we were standing there, and I was assessing the things that I tell you about, being open-minded and stepping outside of our box. But when I got to the third one, assessing our capacity, that's when I knew it just didn't quite feel right. Because we were too far away from the project. We had too many things on the go. We had projects that we were having a tough time completing already. And this was a development, which we had no business doing at that time because we didn't have the cash. We didn't have the time to spend on it. And it just would have been a waste of time, and we would have failed. I'm not saying we would have failed because we probably wouldn't have, but it just wouldn't have felt good, if you know what I mean. So we passed on it. Fast forward 2 years, and I'm a strong believer, by the way, in letting things go if they don't feel right. Very strong. And I've gotten way better at it. I used to say yes to everything, and that sucks. Because you take on stuff that you just don't have any business doing. And so I've learned to just say no and let things, if things are meant to be, they will come back to you. And they will come back to you in your life at the right time, in the right place for you. And that's what we did here. 2 years later, I was living in Duncan. I would have never thought I was living in Duncan. Circumstances were different. I didn't have my welding company. We had more staff. We were on the island, and we were actively looking for development properties. I called Brandon. I'm like, hey, Brandon, how's that 14 acres doing in Nanaimo there, South Street? He's like, oh, it's still for sale. I was like, really? 2 years later? Still sitting there, eh? I was like, what are we missing here? I was like, go make him an offer. He's like, okay. So he makes him an offer. Makes him an offer at $2.1 million, which is what it was listed at for 2 years and longer. And he counters at $2.8 million bucks. So he counters at $2.8 million, and I'm like, are you for real? Like, he just jacked the price. No one's touching this property, and he just jacked the price up $700,000. Brandon's like, yeah. I was like, okay, well, number one rule is if a vendor wants more than the property is worth, what are they likely willing to do? Finance it. Exactly. It's the golden rule. If something's not selling, it's because it's not going to sell. And if a vendor wants to get rid of it for more than it's worth and not be realistic, they're going to have to get creative and offer you terms that work for you. So I was like, go back to him with his BS counter offer, and I asked for 100% vendor financing. Tell him if we're going to pay the $2.8 million, which we will, they have to finance the whole thing. And it was a joke. He was like, are you for real? I was like, yeah. If he says no, who cares? We walk away. At least we're going to walk away with some creative dignity. And so he's like, okay. So he calls me back, and he's like, we just got a counter. I was like, yeah, what is it? He's like, I don't think it's real. He's like, he countered at $2.8 million bucks. Same price, 90% vendor financing, 1.7% interest rate, and 5-year term. I was like, he's like, what should I do? Should I counter him? I was like, no. Don't counter, start the car. Start the car, you nailed it. Get the hell, I'm like, run, Brandon. He's like, where do you want me to run? I'm at my desk. I'm like, dude, is this for real? I was like, you got this on paper? He's like, I'm looking at the paper right now. He's countered it. I was like, unbelievable. What an offer. I'm like, okay, $2.8 million ain't sound so bad. You know what I'm saying? The financing, this deal would not have happened without the financing. It just wouldn't have. If we didn't get that financing, we would have had to put at least 50% down on the property. We would have got horrible terms from the bank. I would have had to have called the same broker and told him I got another piece of crap property that I need him to finance, and he ain't gonna give me anything. And then I would have to talk to the investors and tell them I got this piece of crap property that I need you to trust me on, and I promise one day you'll get your money back. But we did it. We got it under contract. And so we started the due diligence on this, and what started to happen is there was a little bit of environmental concern that started popping up. It was a previous fill site, but I knew there was value. I knew that development was up and coming. I knew that there was an opportunity here. It just had to make sense, and I had to get to the bottom of it. So there was a bit of environmental concern on initial assessment. So it's phase 1, phase 2, we got done, and they brought up that concern. We also had a meeting with the city, and the city started talking to us about a $5 to $8 million road they wanted built. And we're like, oh, well, that sucks. Like, that's not gonna work. So we went to the vendor and we're like, hey, we need an extension. Like, we got some issues here. Like, we need longer than 3 months here. He's like, okay. I was like, we wanna go on a monthly plan, an extension plan with you. And he's like, that's cool. He's like, but I want you to pay me monthly to extend the contract, and it's gonna escalate. Started at $1,500, then it went to $2,500, and near the end it was $5,000. But those costs will go towards the purchase price, those deposits. I'm like, cool, no problem. So we did it. And so we started looking at this, and when there's no latecomers clause, that means in Nanaimo, so it's a development term, which means if you're doing an upgrade that the city requires, a latecomers clause allows you to recoup those costs from surrounding properties when they ultimately develop. Well, Nanaimo didn't have that. So that means if we paid for the road, we paid for it, and we never got any cost back. That's a lot of money. And I was like, I'm not gonna pay for that road if the neighbor ain't paying for it. I was like, and how do we get the neighbor to pay for it if they're just gonna sit there and wait for us to do it? Time to get creative, right? What would you do? What would you do? Put a toll. I like that. We'll just buy the neighbor. I'm like, if we own the property next door, then we can decide to split the cost. Let's go check it out. So we start looking at the neighboring property. Here it is. 6 acres of industrial. You can see the yellow line right above the blue on the north side of that is the 14 acres. That's 6 acres of industrial. And just in case you didn't know, industrial is kind of hot right now. A year ago, it was really hot, but not in Nanaimo. But I didn't care about that at that point. I just cared about splitting the cost of the road. So I went to them. I called Brandon again. I'm like, hey, Brandon, go find the owner of this property. He's like, okay. I call him up the next day. I'm like, did you find anybody yet? He's like, yeah, he's like, I searched on Facebook, and he's like, I got this hit. And it says that one of the owners has a mutual friend with you on Facebook. I'm like, oh, that's kind of cool. Who is it? He's like, Tammy. I was like, what? Tammy's my designer that did all the designing on my apartment buildings on the Lower Mainland. Oh, you got to be kidding me. So I called Tammy up. I'm like, hey, Tammy, do you have a friend named Darcy? And maybe she owns some industrial property on Nanaimo, on Vancouver Island? She's like, yeah, I think I do. She's like, oh yeah, Darcy, we're good college friends. We go way back. Pretty sure she does. I was like, do you still talk to her? She's like, no. I was like, could you? She's like, yeah. I was like, set it up. So she sets up the call. Lo and behold, she gets me a phone call with Darcy, and I get on the phone with Darcy in July of last year, and I'm like, hey. I told her the whole scenario. We've got land, and we're doing the neighboring thing. And I was like, are you in selling mode? She's like, yeah. Just so happens that we just had an offer. We've had it tied up for 8 months, and we just had the offer collapse. But we're looking to sell. She's like, it collapsed. She's like, I got to warn you, though. There's a bit of environmental concern, and there's this road. And I was like, yeah, I know all that. She's like, what do you mean? I was like, yeah, we know all that. We got the property tied up next door. We know everything about your property. It's the same issues. I'm the best guy for the job. Please sell me your property. I was like, and I promise if you give me the time, I will get this deal done. She's like, okay. Can't make this stuff up, guys. Can't make this stuff up. So I got it under contract. Now we own both. We have control of both of the properties as of July. Here are both of those properties under contract. We're not developers yet, guys. We're just trying to be. Just like you guys are trying to step outside of your box and do bigger things. If we didn't get creative with these properties, we would have had no business getting them. We are now talking about a 14-acre development site that has the ability to be rezoned to 400 to 800 units, and that's in the current OCP. That's not outside of any box. That's in the city's box. That's a lot of frickin' units, guys. The industrial land is gonna build anywhere between 100 and 125,000 square feet of industrial land, which there is zero in Nanaimo. The vacancy rates are just as bad, if not worse, as the tenancy vacancy rates, as residential rates. And everybody's buying industrial. So the strategy on this one was vendor financing, 90% VTB, pretty cool. Extended closing on both of them. 1 year on one of them. We were able to extend the industrial to now. It bought me more time to do the cost sharing, or bought me the ability to cost share for the developments. The team and I were able to do the due diligence, work through the problems, get the environmental consulting reports. They kept getting better every single day. All of the news got better. We didn't go into this blind. Like, we're not stupid, and we're not going to risk our investors' capital. We've spent a year and over $80,000. I think it's even over 100 in reports drilling and testing and digging to understand fully what the property challenges are. Talking about the road, we've had engineering off-site, on-site engineering reports to prove that the cost or the value of these properties supported our ability to get these deals done. Thinking outside the box was a necessity. I had to. But you learn the process. You get taught and led by the professionals in the industry that help you understand these. And at the end of the day, use your network, because you all hear about the 7 degrees of separation. Well, this deal got it done in 1. You just never know, right? Who knows what would have happened if we didn't get that hit on Facebook. We would have found another way to get a hold of her. But I guarantee you, I wouldn't have got a personal phone call with the owner the next day. That wouldn't have happened. And so those properties are the ones we're focusing on, with many others that we plan to do in our company. And in the last year, it's obviously been crazy. It's been incredibly crazy for our company. We've had so much going on. But in the last year alone, we have closed on 2 90-unit development sites in downtown Duncan. We've got a 14-acre multifamily residential site, like I said, that has the potential within the next 3 years to be zoned for 400 to 800 units. I'm not scared of that crap. That's wicked. That gets me excited. I've never built the units yet. I don't need to. I'll figure that out when I get there. All I know is I need to get the land ready to build. Then I'll bring on the experts at that time if we decide to go through with the development. 6-acre industrial site, amazing. Partnering with the 14-acre, it's going to be one of the biggest developments in South Nanaimo, which, by the way, is one of the hottest markets in Canada right now. Everybody's flooding there. They're getting out of the mainland, coming to the island. Vancouver Island's pretty cool, in case you were wondering. 150-acre subdivision in Cowichan Valley. That's 5 minutes from my house, the property that I bought out there. 150-acre subdivision. We're closing on that in July. And that's going to be a subdivide and sell lots in a place where there is no land available whatsoever. It's one of the most sought-after areas on the entire Vancouver Island. And the whole time while all this was happening, all I could think about was being here with you beautiful people, sharing my story, building my business, helping you expand your minds, thinking outside the box on how we were going to do all of the things we were doing and pull my entire team away from our office to get here and do this and pull it off. And none of this would have been possible without them. And so I talk about capacity and having the team and the support to be able to pull it off. My team is hand-selected by me, and they have hand-selected me to be a part of their lives, and I wouldn't be here without them. They're the real deal, and they are actually what make me look good, because talking about filling in gaps, I have a lot of them. Why do you think I got my wife off the stage so fast? I didn't need her telling you all my gaps. But my team makes up for that in my business. I need them to help do what I'm doing. I want to thank Lisa and Crystal. They've been there from the beginning. They're amazing. They work their asses off. Aiden and Brandon are sitting up there right now. We're tighter than tight. We're best friends. We do our work together. Claire and Derek, none of this would be possible without them. Thank you guys very much. They literally relocated their lives and followed me to Vancouver Island because they believed in what we're doing. Our team is 100% committed to everything that I'm showing you guys today. And you better be 100% committed to everything you plan to be doing in your life so that you can ensure that your success is 100% true and is full of integrity. And so, from $0 to $60 million in multifamily real estate in the last 6 years, it's been a crazy ride. And I've done a ton of stuff in my life, guys. And I live fast, but I enjoy every moment of it. The one thing I haven't done, though, is what I'm about to do next. And I don't even know what that is. I just keep an open mind and I think outside the box and I wait for the opportunities to come and I make sure that I'm ready to pounce when they do. You hear what I'm saying? You understand? You guys better be ready because the next step in your life is coming up next. And it's because I'm open-minded to finding solutions. It's because I have stepped outside of my comfort zone, and I am always willing to continue stepping outside of my comfort zone. Trust me, there's a lot of uncomfortable situations coming, and I'm looking forward to them because they get me really excited, if you couldn't tell. And I have the capacity to pull it all off. And I'm smart enough to know that if I don't, I won't take it on at that time until I'm ready. And so you guys all have a reason for being here, I hope. And the only message that I want you to understand from me as a human being to you as a human being is that I promise you 100%, whatever you're trying to do and whatever you're thinking about doing, it is 100% possible. You absolutely can do whatever you're thinking about doing. That much I do know. That's not just jargon coming out of my mouth. That's the real deal, people. It's up to you to be able to pull that off. I hope that my story helps you expand your mind a little bit, start thinking outside the box in your own world. I would love to speak to every single person in here that wants to take some time and learn a little bit more about what we do or ask questions about how you can build your business. We're here all weekend. I am hosting the after party tonight, so that's gonna be a really awesome time. And for everybody else, come and see me anytime. Make sure you check out our booth. Thank you very much, everybody.